what we get to climb together / ski together / survive.
Did we actually end up climbing together? I don't
Well,
remember.
you did a little hiking and then you took a nap. I mean, that's like almost like Levitt. This is Climbing Gold.
So I learned something on that trip that I am a mountain expert, perhaps, not a desert expert at all. So yeah, Alex and I, to those that haven't seen the episode, we did an episode together and we were trying to ride our bikes from Death Valley to the base of Mount Whitney and then climb and ski from the summit of Mount Whitney. And
which is a cool low point to high point in the continental U.S. It's like a kind of a natural challenge that people do, which is cool because you're going from Badwater, the lowest point in the continental U.S., to the summit of Whitney, which is the highest. And it's like, what, 120-mile bike ride or something? It's like close enough. It's far enough to be rad, but close enough to be doable. So you're like, oh, it's like a natural challenge.
For sure. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, 15 or 22,000 vert in total, like 135 miles. Like it's a very big day, but it's
But it's like totally doable. It's like, it's not crazy, but you're like, wow, that's challenging. And so it's kind of one of those perfect sweet spot challenges where you're like, oh, that's going to be hard to do, but it's possible and it makes sense.
For sure. So somehow I roped you into this, and
I love that kind of stuff.
You do, for sure. And we went down there and we were kind of setting up to do this. And I'll let the listeners know that if they watch the video, they'll see me get heat stroke and nearly die on the side of the road in Death Valley. And in hindsight, it was very comical. While it was happening, I would say it was a little nerve-wracking.
You were more stressed?
I was a little, well, I remember I was stressed because I was like watching my heart rate monitor and I was like sitting down for 25 minutes inside a air conditioned car after I got heat stroke and my heart rate was still like 170 for just sitting. And I was like, okay, yeah, something's really bad. But so I got heat stroke. We continued to bike. My bike ended up breaking. I remember I sheared a pedal. So we drove to the base. We tried to hike the next day. Obviously, I wasn't in the top condition after getting heat stroke, so I didn't make it to the top, but you and Bjarne and Greg made it to the top and skied back down. You surprised some folk on the way back down. It was awesome.
All I remember is Bjarne, who's the cameraman, right? I mean, but he's also like a professional skier. He's like an incredible skier. But he was like skiing behind me or skiing in front of me, but backward with the camera, basically being like, "You're doing great, like you're gonna survive. You'll be okay." And I was like, "Oh my god!" I was so grip skiing. Bjarne is like just freaking skiing backward, filming, just being like, "This is so chill." And I was like, "This is the most extreme thing I've ever done."
Totally. Well, and I'll give some backstory too. So, when we agreed to do this, I got a call and text from Jimmy Chin, and from Adrian and Emily, I forget one. And they both, like, Jimmy told me, he was like, "Whatever you do, don't kill the world's greatest soloist." And I was like, okay, that's, yeah, definitely my goal. And he's not going to die. It's chill. Like, it's an easy ski. But so we were down in that area the week before. I forget, you got delayed, you couldn't be there. So Bjarne and I decided to go to the summit of Whitney and ski back down, which was my first time doing it. And it was just like, hey, let's get it done with. If anything goes sideways on the bike trip, we'll have checked off the list. And when I skied down, we found some of the worst conditions you could ever imagine, like literally punching through the snow and taking slams, like Bjarne and I. And I was like, oh my God, like, I'm not going to kill Alex, but might ruin his climbing season because like he's going to blow a knee or hurt himself. So we had this plan where we were going to start like late in the afternoon to bike during the night and kind of climb and ski during the next day. Well, I was like, oh my God, we're going to really kill Alex if we do this. So we shifted up the hours a ton to then end up biking in the middle of the day. And in that process, I completely forgot about the fact that I had not been in temperatures above 40 degrees for the past 4 months. And my heat acclimatization was very, very poor. And within the first pretty much 3 hours, I got heat stroke and then nearly killed myself in the process. So, yeah.
And you're also wearing all black spandex in the desert in the day, just burning.
I got a lot of shit for that online. The comments were roasting me for that.
Wow, it's no more roasted than you got by Death Valley Sun. No, but that's in some ways that kind of speaks to the challenge of all these big mountain adventures, though, is that you can always sort of optimize your logistics for one thing or another, but you just can't have at all. You know, you're sort of like, okay, we want good snow conditions, so we want it to be like middle of the day, and it's going to take us whatever 16 hours to get there. So you work backwards 16 hours, and then you're like, so we're going to start biking at 7 a.m. But then you're like, wait, if we start biking at 7 a.m., it turns out we're going to die of heat stroke, which, you know, we discovered. But basically, it's like, you know, I think with all these like big challenges, you're always juggling like real life stuff. Like, when can we get there? And like, when is the permit office open? Like, when can we get the permit to like drive? You know, it's like there's so many logistics that go into this. And I think YouTube comments, you know, people are like, what an idiot. And you're like, well, come on. I had to drive from town. I had to get a permit. I had to figure out the thing. I had to get some breakfast. And then I had to, you know, do 24 hours exercise. You're like, I don't know. How am I supposed to do it differently? You know, and I had to be back a day and a half later because my wife had a thing going on or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's always like real life that you're juggling, and you're kind of like, come on, like you optimize for the conditions you can, and then, you know, there's a lot of real life as well.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's you know, we all make mistakes in the mountains. We all have, but I generally think like I'd like to think that when this is our life and this is what we focus on, like we generally know what the f we're doing.
Yeah, you try not to make mistakes when it matters. You know?
Exactly. No, there's these like sideline mistakes. Like you don't make a mistake when it comes to trying to figure out what the snowpack is doing, seeing the probability of an avalanche coming down on top of you while you're climbing up the face. That's like the number one thing. Hey, if we focus on that. So
yeah, but mistiming your cycling adventure, you're like, whatever. You're like, that's not even my sport. You're like, who cares?